She grabbed the arm of the nearest stranger to avoid her cheating ex, whispering, "Please, just dance with me." But she didn't realize the handsome man whose shoulder she was hiding behind was the most ruthless crime boss in the city, and he never did anything for a stranger for free. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel in New York City was suffocating under the weight of excessive wealth. Kate Hayes stood near the edge of the dance floor, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her crystal champagne flute. She was only here because her public relations firm, Harrison & Company, was managing the annual Sapphire Winter Gala. It was supposed to be a straightforward night of coordinating wealthy donors, managing the press, and staying invisible. Then she saw him, Tristan Carmichael. Her breath hitched, and a cold shock of adrenaline spiked through her veins. Tristan looked exactly as he had 6 months ago, when he packed his bags and walked out of their shared Brooklyn apartment, taking not only her heart, but a significant portion of her savings that he claimed was a temporary loan for his failing hedge fund. He was wearing a custom navy tuxedo, his sandy hair perfectly styled, flashing that same charismatic, arrogant smile. But it wasn't just Tristan. Clinging to his arm was Chloe DuPont, the heiress to a massive shipping conglomerate. Chloe was draped in a blinding array of Cartier diamonds, laughing at something Tristan had whispered. Kate felt the walls of the grand ballroom closing in. The smell of expensive peonies, roasted duck, and French perfume suddenly made her nauseous. Tristan's eyes scanned the room, moving past the ice sculptures and the string quartet. His gaze was tracking toward the catering doors. He was going to see her. He was going to walk over with his new billionaire heiress, look at Kate in her off-the-rack black dress, and offer that same pitying, condescending smirk that had haunted her nightmares. Panic overrides logic. Kate spun around, desperate to find an exit, a crowd to blend into, or a hole to swallow her whole. But she was boxed in by a heavy mahogany pillar and a velvet curtain. There was nowhere to run, except into the man standing perfectly still beside the pillar. He was tall, several inches over 6 feet, with broad shoulders wrapped in a flawless, charcoal black Tom Ford suit. He stood apart from the swirling crowd, holding a tumbler of amber liquid, his attention fixed intently on the entrance of the ballroom, as if calculating every person who walked through the doors. He radiated a dark, quiet authority that made the guests subconsciously give him a wide berth. Kate didn't care. She didn't have time to care. Tristan was 10 yards away and walking in her direction. Without thinking, Kate stepped forward, closed the distance between herself and the stranger, and grabbed his forearm. The muscle beneath the expensive wool of his suit was like granite. She felt him stiffen instantly, a dangerous stillness washing over him. But before he could pull away, she stepped directly into his personal space, flattening her hand against his chest. "Please," Kate whispered, her voice trembling, her face entirely hidden from the room as she buried it against the lapel of his jacket. "Just dance with me. My ex is right there. Please." For a second that stretched into an eternity, the man didn't move. Kate could hear his steady, slow heartbeat beneath her palm, the scent of him, cedarwood, bergamot, and something distinctly metallic, like cold air before a storm, wrapped around her. Then a low, gravelly voice vibrated in his chest. "Do you make a habit, sweetheart, of grabbing men you don't know?" His voice wasn't warm, but it wasn't entirely rejecting her either. It carried a thick, commanding cadence. "Just for one song," Kate pleaded, her eyes squeezed shut. "I'll leave you alone forever, I promise." Before he could answer, a voice cut through the ambient noise of the gala. "Kate! Kate Hayes, is that you?" Kate froze. It was too late. Tristan had spotted her. She slowly turned her head, her hand still desperately gripping the stranger's jacket. Tristan was standing there, Chloe looking vaguely bored beside him. Tristan's eyes raked over Kate, taking in her simple dress, and then flicked to the massive, imposing man she was clinging to. "I didn't expect to see you here," Tristan said, his tone dripping with that familiar, patronizing faux sympathy. "Are you working the coat check tonight?" Kate opened her mouth, but the humiliation lodged in her throat. She couldn't speak. Suddenly, a heavy, warm hand settled onto the small of Kate's back, pulling her flush against a solid frame. "She's with me," the stranger said. His voice was quiet, yet it seemed to drop the temperature of the immediate area by 10 degrees. Kate looked up. The man's face was strikingly handsome, but remarkably severe. He had sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with dark stubble, and eyes that were a chilling, piercing shade of slate grey. A faint, faded scar cut through his left eyebrow, adding a jagged edge to his refined appearance. Tristan blinked, clearly taken aback by the sheer physical presence of the man. "Oh, I'm Tristan. Tristan Carmichael. Kate and I used to—" "I don't care who you are," the stranger interrupted, his tone deadpan, cutting Tristan off with surgical precision. "And I don't care who you used to be. You're interrupting my evening." Tristan's face flushed a deep, embarrassed crimson. Chloe DuPont shifted uncomfortably, pulling at Tristan's sleeve. "Let's go, Tristan. The champagne is getting warm." Tristan tried to recover his pride, standing taller. "I was just saying hello. Kate, let's catch up later. I'll have my assistant email you." "She won't be reading it," the stranger replied smoothly. He didn't raise his voice, but the absolute dominance in his tone made Tristan instinctively take a step back. The stranger looked down at Kate, his grey eyes softening just a fraction, though the dangerous undercurrent remained. "You asked for a dance, darling. The waltz is starting." Without waiting for Tristan to retreat, the man guided Kate seamlessly onto the polished marble of the dance floor. He placed one hand on her waist, holding her right hand in his left, and swept her into the rhythm of the string quartet. Kate was breathless, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked up at her savior. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that. He's a nightmare." "Tristan Carmichael," the man mused, his grip on her waist firm, guiding her through the crowd with an effortless grace that belied his massive size. A mid-level hedge fund manager who bleeds his clients dry and hides behind his new girlfriend's trust fund. Not exactly a terrifying adversary. Kate frowned, missing a step, but he caught her easily. "How do you know that?" The man offered a ghost of a smile, a sharp, fleeting thing that didn't reach his eyes. "I know everyone in this city, Kate, and I know what they owe." The waltz felt like it lasted hours. Kate was intensely aware of the heat radiating from the man, the rough calluses on his palms contrasting sharply with his immaculate tuxedo. As they moved, she noticed other guests doing something strange. They were parting for them. Wealthy socialites, arrogant CEOs, and loud politicians all subtly stepped aside, lowering their voices as the stranger spun Kate past them. "I don't even know your name," Kate whispered, suddenly feeling like a small mouse that had accidentally sought shelter in the paws of a lion. "Arthur," he said simply. The music swelled to a final crescendo and faded out. The man, Arthur, released her waist, though his hand lingered for a fraction of a second longer than necessary. "Thank you, Arthur," Kate said, taking a step back, suddenly eager to escape the overwhelming intensity of his gaze. "I really appreciate it. I should get back to my team now. Enjoy your evening." She turned and began to walk briskly toward the staff exit near the kitchens. She just needed to breathe, to splash cold water on her face, to process the fact that she had just stood up to Tristan. She was halfway down the quiet, carpeted hallway leading to the service elevators when two men stepped out from the shadows. They were built like linebackers, wearing tailored black suits with subtle earpieces curled around their ears. "Miss Hayes," the taller one said, his voice entirely devoid of emotion. "Mr. Sterling requests your presence." Kate halted, her pulse spiking again. "Mr. Sterling? I think you have the wrong person. I don't know a Mr. Sterling." "You know him as Arthur," the second man said, stepping forward to block her path to the elevator. "Please, this way." It wasn't a request. Kate's instincts screamed at her to run, but she was trapped in a secluded corridor with two men who clearly did this for a living. Swallowing hard, she nodded and let them escort her. They bypassed the service area entirely, leading her to a private, gold-gilded elevator at the back of the hotel. A keycard was swiped, and the doors silently closed, taking them up to the penthouse suites. When the doors opened, Kate was ushered into an opulent room overlooking the glittering skyline of Manhattan. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, pouring a measure of dark liquor from a crystal decanter, was Arthur. "Come in, Kate," he said, without turning around. He dismissed the two guards with a flick of his wrist. The heavy double doors clicked shut, leaving her alone with him. "What is this?" Kate asked, her voice shaking slightly despite her best efforts to sound brave. "Who are you?" Arthur turned around, taking a slow sip of his drink. The dim lighting of the penthouse cast heavy shadows over his face, making the scar on his brow look more pronounced. "My full name is Arthur Sterling," he said, his voice calm, dropping into a lower register that sent a shiver down her spine. Though in certain circles, they refer to me by other titles, most of which, I imagine, would make a sweet, hard-working girl like you run for the hills. Kate's mind raced. Sterling. She had heard that name. Working in PR for high society events, you heard whispers. The Sterling Syndicate. They weren't just a wealthy family. They were the invisible hand that controlled the shipping yards, the underground casinos, and the unions across the eastern seaboard. They were the modern-day mafia, operating in boardrooms rather than back alleys. You're the head of the Sterling family," Kate breathed, the blood draining from her face. She had literally thrown herself onto the chest of the most dangerous crime boss in New York. "I am," Arthur said, setting his glass down and walking slowly toward her. He moved like a predator, silent, deliberate, entirely confident. "And you, Kate, just inserted yourself into a very complicated game." Kate took a step back, but her back hit the heavy oak of the door. "I didn't know. I swear. I just needed a distraction. I can leave. I'll never speak to you again." Arthur stopped a few feet away, looking down at her, a dark amusement dancing in his cold eyes. "Leave? You owe me a dance, Kate. And in my world, favors are not freely given. They are currency, and you just incurred a debt. What do you want from me?" she whispered. Arthur reached out, his knuckles lightly grazing her cheek. She flinched, but he didn't pull away. "Your ex-boyfriend, the pathetic Mr. Carmichael, has a nasty habit of gambling with money that isn't his. Specifically, he embezzled $4 million from a front company owned by my associates. I came to this gala tonight to corner him." Kate gasped. Tristan had stolen from the Mafia? That explained why his fund collapsed, why he took her money, why he was desperate to marry into the DuPont fortune. "I was going to have him dragged out of here in a laundry cart," Arthur continued, his thumb gently tracing her jawline, completely at odds with the violent reality of his words. But then, a beautiful, terrified woman threw herself into my arms and claimed me as her shield to make him jealous. I wasn't trying to make him jealous, Kate protested weakly. I was trying to hide. Intentions don't matter. Optics do, Arthur said, leaning in so close she could feel his breath against her ear. Tristan just saw the woman he discarded wrapped in my arms. He thinks you belong to me now. He thinks you have my protection, and more importantly, he thinks you have my ear. Arthur pulled back, his eyes locking onto hers with terrifying intensity. You're going to play the role of my new obsession, Kate. You're going to help me draw Tristan out and tear down his new little empire. And if you play your part well, Arthur smiled, and it was a terrifying, beautiful sight. I'll make sure you get every single cent that bastard stole from you back. Kate stared at the ruthless Mafia boss, realizing with a sinking dread that the dance hadn't saved her from the fire. It had pulled her directly into the inferno. Kate's life transformed overnight into a terrifying, luxurious illusion. The agreement with Arthur Sterling was simple in theory. Be seen, look adored, and let the city's vicious rumor mill do the heavy lifting. Arthur was a man who commanded the city's dark undercurrents with a mere whisper, and within 48 hours, the trap was set. Page 6 and several elite gossip blogs were suddenly running blurry, exclusive photos of the underground kingpin and the seemingly ordinary PR girl. They were spotted leaving the private dining room at Le Bernardin, sharing a quiet, intense conversation in the VIP lounge of the Carlyle, and stepping out of a bulletproof Maybach in Soho. Arthur played the role of the obsessed billionaire to absolute perfection. In public, his hand never left her, resting at the small of her back, his thumb tracing her knuckles when they sat together, his slate-grey eyes fixed on her as if the rest of Manhattan didn't exist. But in the quiet moments inside his heavily guarded penthouse, the lines began to dangerously blur. One evening, after a grueling charity dinner where Kate had to smile until her cheeks ached, she collapsed onto the plush velvet sofa in his living room, kicking off her Louboutins. Arthur handed her a glass of perfectly aged Macallan. "You did well tonight," he murmured, sitting in the armchair opposite her, shedding his suit jacket. He looked exhausted, the sharp angles of his face cast in shadows. Tristan's business partner was at table 4. He spent the entire night watching us. The panic is setting in. Kate took a sip, the amber liquid burning beautifully down her throat. "Is that why Tristan called my office 4 times today?" Arthur's eyes snapped up, the relaxed posture instantly vanishing, replaced by cold, calculating steel. "He called you." My assistant screened them. He sounded desperate, Arthur. He left a voicemail begging for 5 minutes of my time. He says he made a terrible mistake leaving me, and that he needs to explain. Kate laughed, though it sounded entirely hollow. "It's working. He thinks I have your ear. He wants me to beg for his miserable life." Arthur leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze unreadable. "And will you?" "Are you joking?" Kate's grip tightened on the crystal glass. "He ruined me. He took my life savings, money I was keeping for my sister's medical bills, and left a sticky note on the kitchen counter. I want him to burn." A slow, dark smile spread across Arthur's face. It was the first time she had seen genuine approval in his eyes. "Good. We're going to let him meet you tomorrow. Just you. I'll have my men stationed out of sight. We need him to confess on tape to the wire fraud involving the shell companies." "But Kate," his voice dropped, rough and intimate, "if he even breathes in your direction the wrong way, I will forget this entire elegant boardroom strategy and gut him in the middle of Central Park." The raw, possessive violence in his tone made Kate's heart skip a terrifying, electric beat. She was falling for him. It was an insane, stupid realization. But the man who ruled the criminal underworld treated her with more respect, protection, and honesty than any man she had ever known. The next afternoon, Kate sat at a small, wrought-iron table at a cafe near Bryant Park, her heart hammering against her ribs. She wore a hidden microphone beneath her silk blouse. The earpiece tucked behind her hair crackled softly with Arthur's deep voice. "Breathe, sweetheart. I've got 3 men watching him. You are perfectly safe." Tristan arrived looking like a ghost of his former self. His custom suit hung loosely on his frame. He was sweating profusely, and his eyes darted around like a cornered rat. He practically collapsed into the chair opposite her. "Kate, thank God you came," he stammered, running a shaking hand through his hair. You look incredible." "Cut the act, Tristan." "What do you want?" she asked, keeping her voice entirely devoid of emotion. Tristan leaned in, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "You have to talk to him. You have to talk to Sterling. I know he's coming for me. My accounts have been frozen. Chloe's father just hired private investigators because the firm's liquidity is vanishing. Sterling is suffocating me from the inside out. You stole $4 million from a crime syndicate, Tristan." "What did you think was going to happen?" Kate asked coldly. Tristan's eyes widened with manic, terrified energy. He reached out, grabbing her wrist before she could pull away. "Don't touch her!" Arthur's voice snarled through the earpiece, but Kate held her ground, giving a subtle shake of her head. "You don't understand," Tristan hissed, an ugly, vicious sneer replacing his panic. "If I go down, Kate, you go down with me. Did you really think I was stupid enough to put my own name on the K-Man's accounts?" Kate felt the blood drain from her face. "What are you talking about?" "The shell company, Horizon Logistics, the one holding Sterling's $4 million? I forged your signature on the incorporation documents last year. I used your social security number, your old address. As far as the federal government and Sterling's enforcers are concerned, you are the CEO of the company that robbed him." Tristan smiled, a grotesque, triumphant look. "So you're going to go back to your mob boss boyfriend, and you're going to tell him to back off, because if he brings down the feds on me, they arrest you first? We're tied together, Kate. Save me, and you save yourself." Kate couldn't breathe. The ambient noise of Bryant Park faded into a high-pitched ringing. Tristan had framed her. He hadn't just stolen her savings. He had built his financial coffin and placed her right inside it. Before she could form a coherent sentence, a massive, dark silhouette eclipsed the afternoon sun. Arthur Sterling didn't wait for his enforcers. He had crossed the street himself. He grabbed Tristan by the back of his collar and violently hurled him out of the cafe chair. Tristan hit the cobblestones with a sickening thud, crying out in shock as Arthur planted a heavy, leather-clad boot squarely on his chest, pinning him to the ground. Panic erupted in the cafe. People screamed and backed away, but Arthur's men seamlessly moved in, flashing badges to security, creating an impenetrable wall around the scene. "Arthur, stop!" Kate cried, jumping up. Terrified he was going to kill Tristan right there in the daylight. Arthur didn't look at her. His grey eyes were locked onto Tristan, blazing with a murderous, unhinged fury that Kate had never seen before. "You forged her name?" Arthur's voice was barely a whisper, yet it carried a lethal weight that silenced the immediate area. "You tied her to my stolen assets?" Tristan coughed, spitting blood onto the pavement, his bravado entirely shattered. Yes. I have the documents in a vault. You touch me, Sterling, and the police get the file. She'll go to federal prison for a decade." Arthur let out a low, dark laugh that chilled Kate to the bone. He removed his foot from Tristan's chest, crouching down so they were eye to eye. "Did you really think a mid-level grifter could outplay the house?" Arthur asked softly. "Did you think I would launch a full-scale financial war against you without doing a forensic audit of my own missing money first?" Tristan froze, his chest heaving. Arthur straightened up, adjusting his cuffs with an eerie, chilling calm. "I knew about the forged signatures 3 days ago, Tristan. I own the board of directors at the Cayman National Bank. The moment I saw Kate's name on those documents, I had my people wipe the servers. Kate's name doesn't exist on any financial document tied to Horizon Logistics." Tristan's face went completely slack. No, I have hard copies, which my team removed from your safety deposit box at Chase Manhattan at 9 a.m. this morning," Arthur countered smoothly. "You have nothing? But it gets worse for you, Carmichael, because I needed a new name to replace Kate's on those documents, someone with deep pockets to take the fall." Arthur pulled a sleek black phone from his pocket and tossed it onto Tristan's chest. The screen was lit up with a breaking news article from the Wall Street Journal. DuPont shipping heiress implicated in massive syndicate fraud. Federal authorities raiding Chloe DuPont's estates. "You," Tristan gasped, horrified. "You framed Chloe?" "You framed her," Arthur corrected coldly. "I just made sure the digital paper trail led directly from your laptop to her trust fund. The DuPont family is old money, Tristan. They are ruthless, legitimate billionaires, and they do not take kindly to a gold-digging hedge fund manager destroying their empire. They aren't going to call the police. They are going to destroy you. You are entirely, completely erased." Arthur turned his back on the trembling, ruined man on the ground and extended a hand toward Kate. His eyes softened instantly, the murderous predator vanishing, leaving only the man who had promised to protect her. "Come here, darling," he said softly. Kate, trembling from the sheer adrenaline of the confrontation, stepped forward and placed her hand in his. Arthur pulled her flush against his chest, wrapping a protective arm around her waist, and guided her toward the waiting Maybach, leaving Tristan sobbing on the pavement as Chloe's father's private security vehicles began pulling up to the park. Inside the quiet, insulated luxury of the car, Kate buried her face in her hands, taking deep, shuddering breaths. It was over. Tristan was gone. The nightmare was finally over. Arthur reached into his inner breast pocket and pulled out a heavy cream envelope, placing it gently in her lap. Kate looked up, her eyes red. "What is this?" "Your money," Arthur said quietly. "The funds he stole from you, plus a generous interest rate for your acting services over the past week." Kate opened the envelope. Inside was a certified cashier's check for $10 million. She gasped, dropping it as if it burned her. "Arthur, I can't take this. This is too much. The contract was just for my savings. We're done now. The fake relationship is over." Arthur shifted closer, invading her space until she was backed against the leather door, his large frame caging her in. He reached up, his rough thumb gently wiping a stray tear from her cheek. "Who said anything about fake?" Arthur murmured, his gaze dropping to her lips. "I told you from the beginning, Kate. I never do anything for free. You asked for a dance, and you incurred a debt. You think a few days of pretending pays that off?" Kate's breath hitched, her heart doing a frantic, joyful flip. "Then what do I owe you?" "Everything," Arthur stated, his voice a low, possessive growl as he leaned in. "You are mine now, Kate. No contracts, no pretending. I tore down a man's life today because he dared to put your name in his mouth. I am never letting you go." Kate looked into the slate-gray eyes of the most dangerous man in New York, knowing she was entirely trapped, and for the first time in her life, realizing she never wanted to escape. She reached up, tangling her fingers in the lapel of his tailored suit, pulling him the rest of the way down. "Then I guess you better take me home, Mr. Sterling." And that's the end of Kate and Arthur's intense mafia romance. If you loved this dramatic tale of revenge, twisted fate, and dark romance, hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our thrilling real-life stories. What would you have done in Kate's shoes? Let us know below.